Hi, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Anna. I'm a psychologist in training. On this channel, we talk about real life applications to psychology, and today we're going to be discussing people pleasing, being nice, and fear of conflict. I hope to bring kind of a new perspective to this where we're not just talking about the origin of these behaviors and what to do about it, but more so kind of looking at it from the lens of, is this even an accurate way of describing what these behaviors are? Because this new perspective that I hope to bring is one that doesn't just rely on us thinking ourselves as nice. It has kind of a twist, but we'll get into that in a moment. First, I really want to talk about today's fundraiser. So this month, the fundraiser is for the Center for Reproductive Rights, the CRR, which is a nonprofit that is a global rights human organization. So it is globally trying to advocate for women's reproductive health. And I know I've done fundraisers for Planned Parenthood in the past, and I also want to offer an alternative because, not everyone completely supports Planned Parenthood, but the CRR fights specifically the legal route. So trying to look at litigation, legal policy and advocacy, resources and research, landmark cases. So specifically looking at how we can legally help women as opposed to just donating for places where they can seek reproductive medical services. I don't think I need to explain why this is important. I've kind of wanted to not talk about the Roe versus Wade being overturned because I see it everywhere, and frankly, I think it's a little bit demoralizing to constantly be confronted with these sorts of messages. And it's not fear-mongering because, of course, this is a valid fear, it's going to affect a lot of women. But there is an element of fear that it induces in people to constantly see this type of content. I have a lot to say, but I just don't want to go too much into it because I just need a break from discussing that kind of stuff. And I think it's really important to act right now, not just to talk about these things, which is why I hope that this fundraiser can provide a venue for you to do so, to easily, just with a few clicks, 30 seconds, you'll be done. Donate to an organization that is able to help women around the world to get reproductive health. All right, so back to the topic of today's video. How would we define people pleasing? People pleasing is basically wanting to please people, wanting people to be happy with you, to like you perhaps. And so going out of your way to make decisions that will ensure that will happen. For example, if someone is cutting you off when you're getting on the train, just letting them go and not saying anything. That would be an example of people pleasing. Now, being nice is interesting, and I never use the term nice in an overly positive way. I think nice is a way of behaving, but it's not a value. Kindness is a value. Treating people with kindness, with respect, with dignity. I definitely think that's something very positive, and that's definitely one of my core values as well. But being nice is more so people pleasing at the cost of your own well-being. You're not just being kind to other people, you're sometimes maybe being unkind to yourself by trying to be too nice to other people. And then fear of conflict, I think, pertains to this as well, because people who are too nice and people who do too much people pleasing, they often have an aversion to conflict and a fear of upsetting other people or getting into a fight. And I think there are some very valid reasons why this comes up. Like if you grew up in a very high conflict home and you were sort of stepping on eggshells trying to ensure that fights weren't breaking out in your family, then it would make sense that into adulthood you've sort of internalized that as a fear of conflict, a fear of things escalating because that was what you were confronted with from a very early age and very frightened of. And that is the key word, is the fear. The fear of conflict is the important piece because it's not like you're just choosing to avoid conflict. It's not like you're choosing to more skillfully navigate interactions to maximize you getting your needs met or to make sure that it doesn't escalate. It's genuinely coming from a place of fear. But what if I told you that in a lot of these situations, it's not necessarily about being nice or wanting to please other people and not avoiding conflict to keep things merry, but rather because you want people to perceive you in a positive way and you worry that you're going to fail at conflict. You probably say, ouch, that's a little harsh. And, maybe it's true. I'm sure it doesn't apply to everyone. But the thing is, I was reflecting on this for myself, and if you know truly in your heart that you act in accordance with justice and respect for people, then you fearing that people are going to perceive you as unkind or not nice is not really a matter of cognitive dissonance. It's a matter of, I want to control the way that they perceive me. I want them to like me. I want them to think positively of me. If you already know I go through life being kind to people, but you're very afraid that people are going to perceive you're not kind. Either you're actually not acting in accordance with your values and it's an act of cognitive dissonance, or you're okay with your values. You're just afraid that other people are still not going to like you, that they're going to think of you negatively for having boundaries or for not revolving around their comfort. You're not actually trying to be nice to people. You're trying to get them to think of you as nice. And that is a very important distinction because, like I said, if you're okay with yourself, if you know I act in ways that are objectively kind, then you should be okay with however they react, knowing that maybe they will perceive you as being rude for not bending over backwards to please them, but that doesn't really change the fact that you are still living in accordance with your values. Likewise, you might not actually be trying to avoid conflict because it's messy or because you dislike drama, but again, because of that fear of peace, because you are afraid that if a conflict happens, you're going to lose. Because people who have people-pleasing tendencies or want to be nice at all costs, even above being kind to themselves, they often don't resort to fight in a situation. So you have the F3 response during times of stress: fight, flight, or freeze. People that fight have no fear of conflict. They willingly go into conflicts, or if they choose not to, it's just that, it's a choice. But if your instinct is to run away or to freeze up, then you know that someone whose instinct is to fight in a conflict will probably win. It's not a matter of you taking the high road or trying to be kind. It's a matter of you, and I'm sorry to say this, I know it sounds harsh, and I promise it applies to me as well. It's a matter of you sort of being a coward. If you were actually trying to be kind and conflict-free with people, you wouldn't care what they thought of you. You wouldn't care that they think you're a bitch for standing up for yourself, because you'd see yourself as a kind person regardless of what they think. But because you feel anxiety about these issues, it reflects that you fear their perception of you. You could be perfectly confident in your values and your kindness, but you fear that someone will perceive you as not being in alignment with your values and judge you for it. So I want you to imagine for a moment that one of your friends is angry with you for setting a boundary with them, or having to tell a boss a dissatisfaction that you have with how they've been running things, or walking past a catcaller and glaring them without responding. How do you feel? I'm guessing if you struggle with this issue, you feel anxious. Anxious that your friend thinks less of you, anxious that your boss thinks less of you, anxious that that catcaller thinks you're rude and maybe even will retaliate violently. The common thread here is fear, but not just fear of how they will see you. What if I told you that being nice is overrated? That it doesn't actually get you your needs met in most cases. Now, sure, there are some situations where being nice, or like I said, being kind, I think is a better way of putting it, can be helpful. It can help you get along with your peers, with your supervisors. It can help you live in accordance with your values and can get people to think positively about you in some cases. But you don't need to be nice to be kind. Being nice means that predatory people are going to see you as an easy target to trample, and also not someone worth respecting. I don't know if you've ever been in the situation in like middle school or high school when the mean kids in school would pick on you and you would just sort of submit to them. Do you think that they respected you for it? Like, sure, they might want submission and loyalty from the people in their circle, but if they're verbally abusing someone and that person doesn't stand up for themselves, I promise you, that's not going to make them think of that person more positively. If anything, it's going to think of them as someone easier to pick on, and in turn, make them think even more negatively about them. How much does it really matter if you're not nice? Does it matter what the rude man on the street who is catcalling you thinks of you? If someone doesn't like it, if you're standing up for yourself? Does it even matter if your friends don't think you're nice? Like, I have a friend, for example, who, I don't want to say she's not nice, but she's very assertive. She likes to get what she wants, and she's very vocal when someone oversteps their boundaries. Like, if a car is trying to pass while we're crossing the street, she'll like give them a thumbs down and like yell at them and ask them like, what are you doing? But I respect her. I know that she is a kind person, even if she's not nice. I know that she is a loyal friend, a supportive person, caring, empathic. I don't need her to be nice to like her as a person. Versus I previously had a friend who was nice but not kind. She was very two-faced, very backhanded, very snaky. She would be like very overwhelmingly fake nice to your face, And then it would be revealed that she had a lot of over-controlled hostility beneath the surface, a lot of resentment and bitterness that she was not showing to people. I had no respect for that. And I think a part of that is that I sort of related more to her than to my friend who I described who's very assertive. The things we tend to be harshest on are the things that we hate about ourselves. So question this idea that you need to be perceived as nice to get your way, because truly, you don't even need to be perceived as nice by your friends in order for them to like you. And as for conflict, conflict is often needed in order for relationships to deepen, to get your needs met, to repair injustices. Like they say, a negotiation between you and your boss should leave the relationship stronger than it was before. They should respect you for standing up for yourself, for being able to negotiate a compromise with them. Likewise, conflict in relationships, for example, can be a great way to deepen connection, to see how people navigate difficult situations and how they concede with each other. I want to say that there is a difference between conflict and fight. If you've been on my channel for a long time, you know that I don't think fighting in the colloquial sense of the word is really helpful or healthy in relationships. I think that people who normalize like yelling and screaming and verbally abusing each other in romantic relationships or in any sort of relationship are a little bit misguided about what conflict means. To me, conflict is just a disagreement, two different sets of needs that are in contradiction and in need of being resolved. And I think a lot of really passive people, when they're trying to behave more assertively, they swing too far to the other side and it turns into aggression. So instead of having a healthy conflict where they can just agree to disagree with someone or work out their differences, they swing too far to, well, you're wrong, I'm right, and yelling and a whole host of maladaptive ways of moving through relationships. If you fear conflicts, you won't even give yourself a chance to get your needs met, and you won't build the skills necessary when a conflict is unavoidable. Because I promise you, there is no person who is completely able to avoid conflict. There will always be someone who throws a conflict your way, and if you don't have the skills to deal with that, then you're going to be caught completely off guard and you're not know how to get your needs met. So what is the solution here? First of all, I think you need to decatastrophize your fear of what people will think of you. Okay, so think of the worst case scenario. That person on the street thinks you're a bitch. That person at work thinks that you're not a team player. That person in your friend group thinks that you're not nice because you're not bending over backwards to please them. So what? So what if that happens? Oftentimes it's so much scarier in our thoughts than when we actually play out what it would be like for that to happen. But if you actually think about the worst case scenario, most times it is something that we can overcome. Most times it is something that really is not going to destroy our life. Decatastrophize that worst case scenario. Then also realize that it's not really in your best interest to be nice at the expense of your needs. It will only build resentment that ironically results in unkind behavior. So if you want to get your needs met and you want people to perceive you as kind, then not being fake nice or not being nice at the expense of your needs is a great way to make that happen. And like with anything, like I keep talking about, this is about fear, and the antidote to fear is pretty simple. It's incremental exposure to things that frighten you. So I can encourage you to really make a list of everything it is that you fear, that people won't like you for, situations where you think, oh, this person's not going to think I'm nice, this person is going to get mad at me, or a conflict is going to arise, and try to rate each of them on a scale from 0 to 100, 100 being like panic attack, 0 being absolutely no anxiety. We call these in psychology SUD, subjective units of distress. And so try to create that hierarchy of what makes you the least scared versus the most scared in terms of these situations, and then start working your way up anytime you get an occasion to do so. Like for me, for example, things at the bottom of my list are telling a man that's bothering me on the street that I don't want to talk to him, asking Uber drivers to turn on the AC, disagreeing with a colleague. Like this recently happened to me. Someone in my class was just continuously trying to tear down my arguments, and after a certain point I was like, you know what, like this needs to end, this person needs to stop picking on me. And I just sent them like 900 word response with like 10 references. And that was me saying, you know what, I'm not afraid of conflict. Like I can handle this. I know what I'm talking about. If you're gonna say that I'm wrong because of one opinion piece article, then I'm gonna come at you with 10 references from scholarly articles. Another situation is like, for example, I was at the Atlanta airport a few weeks ago and I was just trying to get on the escalator, and this woman started to pick a fight for no reason. She was coming, I guess, at the same time as me. I got there before her, and she was saying like, what, you couldn't have let me go? You see, I don't have a bag. And I didn't really say anything because I was like, what the hell is happening? But if I had wanted to like lean into the conflict in that moment, I could have said like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't see you. Like, I'm just minding my own business. You're free to go ahead. Confrontation and conflict does not have to be very aggressive. It can coexist with giving people the benefit of the doubt. So for example, on a different trip, I was in an airplane and there was this man who's trying to push to get off the airplane once it landed, which I think we can all agree is very frustrating behavior when people do that and don't give you a chance to like get your luggage. But he was pushing past the man in front of him and he said like, excuse me, and like pushed past him. And the man he was pushing said, what, you don't know how this works? In like a very aggressive tone. And it turns out the man that was pushing was just like this sweet old man trying to get to his wife a couple rows up. And now like, it's true, like he didn't need to push past people. He could have just waited for his turn. He could have met his wife like 30 seconds later. It didn't need to be a big deal. But I think this example really highlights that that man didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. Like he could have been trying to catch a connecting flight or something. Like had he thought about why might this person be doing this while giving them the benefit of the doubt, he might have been a little bit less aggressive in his approach. So try not to assume the worst of intentions. Try to ask yourself if maybe there's a benefit of the doubt that can explain their behavior. And if you're unsure, you can just ask them. Like when I'm in an Uber and they're not turning on the AC, it's 94 degrees outside, I can say like, excuse me, does this car have working AC? Because some cars don't. And so that's a way of saying like, oh, maybe this person doesn't have the ability to put on AC. Or, you know, if someone's pushing behind you, you can say, sorry, are you in a rush to get to a connecting flight? Like, do you need to go? Or if someone is like stopping you on the street and trying to get your attention and you're not sure if they're trying to bother you or just need help, you could say, I'm sorry, do you need directions to get somewhere? And then if they don't have an excuse for their rudeness, you can approach it with a little bit more of an assertive approach that's also not super intense or angry, that is proportionate to the situation. Like you could say, oh, I just figured since you were pushing to get past me, maybe you're in a hurry. I'd appreciate you not do that. Or, okay, so you don't need directions. Sorry, I don't talk to people I don't know on the street as a rule of thumb, nothing personal. But you don't even really need to apologize. Like I remember this one time I was turning down some man trying to talk to me and I had like apologized while doing it. And he said like, what are you sorry for? Like you have nothing to apologize for. And I was like, that's true. Like I don't have anything to apologize for. Thank you for saying that. Like it shows you're one of the good ones. Because what's the alternative if we give into people pleasing and being nice in fear of conflict? A whole lot of resentment, over-controlled hostility. It's going to explode at some point. Frustration that will trickle into your day-to-day life in ways that will dispel this image of you as a nice person. And also a lifetime of discomfort, a lifetime of sitting in Ubers that don't have the AC, getting pushed by people in the elevator, having to cater to people catcalling you on the street. Is that really the way you want to live your life? Or do you want to stand up for yourself, be more comfortable, and people that are respectable are going to respect you more for it, and people that are not respectable are going to be mad about it, but that's their problem. So just a new perspective to think about. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, commenting, all of that goes a really long way, so I'd appreciate it. Also, please don't forget to donate to this month's fundraiser. It is a very, very important time and cause to do so. And other than that, I hope you have a great day and I'll see you soon.